Okay, so we're going to need a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of that. Now, I actually do have a couple more sketchbooks, but I think that'll make the video very long, so we're just gonna do, I guess, my first and last sketchbook. Also, because I can't really find where all my sketchbooks are because I did use a bunch of them. Okay, so I guess let's keep the mic a little bit close. Probably there. Hopefully it's fine. And yeah, so essentially, like, I started doing this drawing. Wow. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I did start doing this drawing probably in like January of this year, so started doing this about 6 months ago. And essentially, my first goal with this was to draw like better anatomy, kind of, because I could barely like draw like a front-facing character, and I just really hated that. Like, it would take me so long to essentially just draw anything that would not be like a stiff front-facing character, like the whole, do the circle head, boom, that, neck, body, boom, boom, waist. Like that whole profile thing that looks very robotic. Aside from doing that, everything else would take me like, I don't know, a bunch of time to draw. So that's the kind of whole goal with this. I guess the correct terminology would be like gesture drawing. So, and in the beginning, I did make a really big mistake, which was like primarily just doing like this one, like this incredibly stiff block building pose that I really didn't like. But I didn't use a whole bunch of references in the beginning, so a lot of the poses did look stiff, a little bit unnatural as well, and just all around weird. And I guess, as you can probably already tell if you guys have seen some of these, one of the biggest like inspirations I had to do this was just looking back at some of my favorite manga like that I've been reading recently, and just looking at the art style, I guess, like Vinland Saga as an example. You see how much detail every single panel has, right? Like, the amount of detail on each character in each panel is unreal. Then you go to like Dragon Ball, which has very, very exaggerated anatomy. And this is what I've been doing my early sketchbooks on, is just Dragon Ball. Like, the very extreme poses were very good, especially in scenes that didn't necessarily need it. You can tell that Akira Toriyama put a lot of work into Dragon Ball because, oh my god, every single panel is like an incredibly good pose. Like, for this panel, as an example for Vegeta, he could literally just do like a standing pose when he's already landed, but no, he obviously had to take the extra step doing overlapping, gesture drawing, and just dynamic poses all in one. And that is not very rare for him to do that in every single panel, as you can see. So yeah, looking at Dragon Ball did give me the inspiration, and then some of my other favorite manga like Vinland Saga and Full Metal Alchemist. I would say that Full Metal Alchemist is my favorite just because of how clean it is. Panel to panel, page to page, it's so clean. And I like how the panels, the background at least, like let's say this one as an example, they just either keep it black, white, or grey. You don't need to do anything extreme for scenery for the background. And I kind of like that simplicity of this. And it creates, as you can see, a very dramatic feel for some of the panels as well. So yeah, essentially it was like doing something that's far above my skill level currently in order for me to try and learn better. But something you're also going to notice is that a lot of the pages are very blank. Like, very blank, and sometimes I draw really big, sometimes I draw really small. And it's because I really didn't have a whole lot of passion really when I was doing this. Oh yeah, I remember this. This was when I was watching Mob Psycho 100, and I really liked a lot of the facial expressions. Yeah, I really liked that episode with this guy when Reagan was trying to scam them out. It's very funny. Oh yeah, I guess Ray. If you're looking for like a whole bunch of gesture drawings, just Reagan from Mob Psycho is very good for gesture drawings. He had so many interesting poses. But yeah, I think this is around the area where I started to just look at some anatomy and some references, so then I could actually like get some consistency. I also did really like this character from Mob Psycho. It was a I essentially just binged the entire series and then just drew the characters that I liked and the poses that I liked from the series. And something that I've learned essentially from like doing some gesture drawings or dynamic poses is that you're going to find a lot that the neck isn't really present in most of these poses, especially if you look at like Dragon Ball as well. Because what these dramatic poses or these gesture drawings do is that the head is there. The neck you will usually draw if you're drawing like a character profile or a character pose. But when you go into like a more action style pose, the head is usually hunched forward or hunched down to be more dramatic, to be more of a fight pose. So what will really happen is that the neck will overlap. Sorry, the shoulder and head will overlap, meaning you likely will not see the neck. So if saying this is the head, this is the chest, where usually in a character profile you'll see the head, the neck, and then the shoulder, chest area as a part. So then this is the kind of pose that's created compared to that one. And then it depends on if your character is doing like a leaping pose, because from here you might not even show the waist, you might just show the legs preparing to launch forward, right? And let's say this is a kneecap, and then a little bit more foreshortening. So you kind of get the idea. Maybe this should really end off at this point. This part should be eliminated. So it's about like kind of tightening the pose, in my opinion. That's essentially like how I did it anyway, and it worked fairly well for me. Just tightening up the pose a bit, uh, adding a lot of overlap. That is the main point, that I was not doing enough of overlap, overlap, overlap. But essentially, I had like a sketchbook that I would draw in like while I'm at my desk here. I would have one that I would draw in whenever I would go to my university class, and then I would have one that I would draw in whenever I went on the train. So I essentially had like three sketchbooks that I was working on the entire time, and I've likely drawn like a ton in all these sketchbooks. And in my iPad now, I've drawn I think close to around 500 in just anatomy, like 500 sketches in just anatomy. So it was a lot, and I was originally planning on making this video around April time, maybe May, and it's already like almost halfway through June, or if already halfway through June, you know. So it has taken me a long time to get this video out, and I've been doing a lot more drawing. Now, this one is my most recent sketchbook, and then we're going to be moving on to my iPad drawings. But yeah, I did experiment with doing a little bit more anatomy. I did draw with a little bit of color and a little bit of inking, finally. But again, I'm gonna say why these looked very inconsistent for what they should be. Like, you can already tell, like, this compared to my first sketchbook, there isn't a massive difference aside from like making the sketch a little bit cleaner without all those fuzzy lines on them, right? And one of the main reasons is like, when doing this, I had to take many breaks. I drew. I remember I drew from like January to around March time consistently. And then I had so many like problems in my life, like I had a couple of infections, had to see doctors, had to get medication. My overall health was pretty bad at that point, which was just bad. And I had been drawing so much, but like it's nothing that I really wanted to draw. It was just like, yeah, you're gonna draw anatomy because you're just gonna try to get better. You're gonna try to draw some hands because you're just trying to get better. Nothing that I actually wanted to draw, and I think that's one of the main key points as well. If you just keep drawing for the sake of getting better, and you don't draw anything that you like in between, you're just gonna plateau really badly, like I did. Like, sure, there are some improvements, like drawing a similar character pose from many different angles, but it's again such little progression from what it could have been, and you can definitely see the amount of white space on every page. Like, I was really not putting in as much effort as I could have. And something I'm going to say is that this is probably one of my best purchases for this entire thing. Before this, I was just using regular pencils that would snap all the time. It was so annoying. And the pencil ends were always so blunt. So I would say if you guys can get a good mechanical pencil, I would highly recommend it. I'm never fighting against the page to do these lines. The line quality is very good, and it just makes the entire process so much more easier. Now, before I had this mechanical pencil, which I believe is a Roaring X300, I would highly recommend it for anyone that does art. I was using these like incredibly cheap Mozart ones. These ones are like, I don't know, $4 maybe. And for their price, they are pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But they just kept making me fight against my paper to draw lines, which I really hated, so I had to get something that was a little bit better. But like, if you're someone that just does this as a hobby, I would recommend this. It's not that bad for the price range, honestly. But this one is a completely different beast, and I would highly recommend it. And I think at this point is when I finally started using it. And what I actually finally did, which I should have been doing the entire time, was redrawing the same pose to see the better overlap. You can tell, look at how much better the overlap is on this one. It looks so much more natural than the first attempt. It looks so much more smoother, so much more like, I guess real? Because you eliminate so much of this dead space that shouldn't really be there. You eliminate this dead space that really shouldn't be there. You're probably not really going to be seeing the waist in this position. You're probably not going to be able to see this part of the armpit in this position. You understand what I mean? So just redrawing, even if it's just doing two drawings of the same pose, really helps you a lot with improving. And that is, again, something I should have done a lot more of, but I only started doing it probably a couple of months ago, and it really helped me with this drawing. So yeah, just doing a little bit more again. First attempt, you can see how unnatural it just looks. Look how stiff it looks. The shoulder should not be this straight, and then you can tell it's a little bit more natural on the second one. I think I could do a little bit better actually. Let me just try. So I guess you can tell there's a little bit of improvement. I guess not really as much improvement as I would have liked. I guess mainly like the character turn is a little bit better, but overall, it's fairly the same. Don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. Let me just make sure you guys can actually see that. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a fairly decent improvement compared to the first two. But yeah, you can tell that I did get a little bit of my passion back as I was actually like filling the pages now. And I did actually try drawing with no references, so that was a huge step because even though it does look a little bit awkward, some of these, it's again no references, which is like a huge jump. You shouldn't really be doing no reference drawings until like several years into drawing, honestly. It's such a difficult thing to do. Like the difference in your sketches when you have a reference compared to no reference is unreal. And I actually really did like this pose of Goku. This I did use a reference for. And I just like it because it's so exaggerated. Like it, you shouldn't really have a V taper with this much mass on your body. But I guess you could really say that for almost all Dragon Ball characters. And yeah, you can tell some of the frustrations where I scribbled out some of my drawings. And yeah, it's just moving along, drawing a little bit more. So yeah, this was when I had another thing happen. Like at this point, one of my family members did get into a car accident, so I had to take like another month off. I was in a pretty bad mental state at this point. And yeah, so again, just didn't really want to draw or do anything, obviously, with the family in a hospital. And then I eventually got back to drawing again. Got back to drawing some of my favorite, like Full Metal Alchemist. This was I didn't actually know what Bradley looked like for this pose. I didn't know what the pose was when I was drawing this, so no reference, no idea what the character looked like, and did this in like 40 seconds, and then I actually drew with a reference. But yeah, I think Bradley just is a good looking character. Like in each manga panels, it's really hard to draw him bad, I guess, because it is simple. It's just a good character. I don't know what to say. So yeah, drawing a little bit more Full Metal Alchemist now. I did really like it. Again, first attempt, second attempt, trying to just get the pose down. Some of these more harder poses to do are especially Dragon Ball poses. More Full Metal Alchemist, more Full Metal Alchemist, more Full Metal, a little bit more Naruto. Actually, I did like drawing this pose, like without having to start with the head and the body, just drawing from the foot and then building off of that. I thought it was a pretty good experience, and it's all again just building blocks. When you don't add the detail to the foot, it really just looks like building blocks, but that's why you need to refine your drawings once they're done. This Jiraiya was really bad though. This I did do in pencils rather than my mechanical pencil, so the pen tip was so blunt I could not do any spiky lines. So it just looked horrible. So yeah, a little bit more Naruto, a little bit more Dragon Ball. I did draw this pose of Goku like a few times in the past, so I just decided to see, hey, what does it look like if I drew it now? And I think that it looks the cleanest now. I would say that if I spent a little bit more time on this pose, it could have looked better, especially this finger. But yeah, you can tell like the body turns and like the curves of the body are looking a lot better than they used to be. And yeah, just drawing more. This again was like a 5 day break. I think this was because of my infection that I had, so I just took a 5 day break to take like tablets and some medication for it. And yes, one of my favorites to draw, Jujutsu Kaisen. I really did like drawing this. A little bit more poses. And again, you can tell it's just a theme of like drawing too many poses and not stuff that I actually liked. So the amount of white space on the page again is just unreal. Again, just more poses, nothing really like fully sketched out, nothing that I really wanted to draw, just more poses, trying to improve. And because I was just trying to improve, I think I regressed a bit because it's just too much gesture drawings. You should really take a break rather than doing what I did for like what 5 months or something. So yeah, a little bit more Jujutsu Kaisen. And yeah, finally something that I actually wanted to draw, and you can tell I did actually try using markers for the first time, but I got like I think I can find no, I can't find it. I threw it away. I think I used some of the cheapest markers I could find, and you can definitely tell it looked so cheap because I had to go over this like 4 times in the same marker because it would always just not not ink out onto the page. Like it was such bad markers, and I was so annoyed. So yeah, that's why he looks a little bit like that. Yeah, and I didn't use acrylic markers at first, so it just bled into like 3 pages. Thankfully, I didn't draw anything on the back of these pages. Yeah, a little bit more Dragon Ball, more Dragon Ball Full Metal, more Dragon Ball Full Metal, I believe. A little bit more dynamic poses, again doing the same pose. This page actually looks a little bit better than I remember. Again, just some more. Like, these very exaggerated women poses just looked very, it looks very bad without detail, these very exaggerated poses. And yeah, I think this was when I lost my mind. I was just like, too much. I was like, too much. I've had enough. I've had enough. You can tell some of the frustration on these pages. Oh wow, it actually bled into more pages. And another page. Yeah, at some point, it's just the frustration builds of just drawing the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, I think this was actually some Vinland Saga characters. I can't exactly remember just from this alone. I think this is Olmar actually. You can definitely tell from the hairstyle. So yeah, again, more poses. And I think this was when I started drawing a little bit consistently again. You can tell the date, 6th of June 2026. And I think today is about the 17th of June. So yeah, I didn't do a whole lot in my sketchbook now because I think I mainly did it in the iPad. Yep, so we have a little bit of pages left, nothing on them. I did swat out some colors in the back. And just then I have them here for if I ever want to go back to doing some colors on my drawings. But yeah, I guess time to move on to the iPad. So, okay, I have done about 450 illustrations on this anatomy page. I have done so many drawings here. It's kind of disgusting if you guys just want to take a little bit of a sneak peek at how many drawings I've done. When I say I put my mind to something, I do it. I really do it. I put so much time into this. And then here are some character illustrations as well that I've done. So yeah, I've drawn a lot of characters in like different mediums and from different stuff in so many poses. I think this is one of the first ones that I actually did, and it doesn't look too bad to be honest. I mean, we can just do like a little bit of a time lapse of this. You can tell it's pretty decent for drawing it in like what, 20 minutes? It's not bad, and hardly any guidelines really. Yes, this was when I was starting to draw some of my Dragon Ball poses. We got Kid Gohan doing his little kick on the what was it, the Frieza soldiers. Oh wow, you can tell this one. I remember this so well. I started doing this in January. This was the very first pose that I did of Goku, and you can tell this was like when I was first starting out with this as well. Because this, this actually makes me feel a lot better about my progress. Like you can tell, I had no idea what I was really doing. The back is so far out, and the waist. Oh my god, can we talk about the waist? How massive the waist is. So we got the back going from all the way here, and then we got the waist essentially here, going here, overlapping with the back. That is unreal. Yes, this is one of my first, I think, illustrations of Goku in his iconic pose as well. Yeah, I can see the progress now. I haven't looked back at these until making this video, by the way. I think I might have forgotten to mention that. So, looking back at it now, yeah, this is some major progress. And then I actually did try to make some like my own illustrated characters. This is not a character that already exists. This was my own kind of thing. I had no idea what I was doing. I just decided to do a whole bunch of things like a half mask, maybe evil character. I don't know. And like I did try to do some like character illustrations as well. Like you can tell some of these I was a little bit iffy on. Like the again, it's just the waist again. I don't know what is wrong with it. So we got the chest being this high, and then the waist being like double the length. So I think if the waist was like half the length, it would have been fine. I don't believe I did use a reference for this though, so doing this without a reference is not that bad. And then another character, I think this one looked pretty good, to be honest. Not bad. Not bad. Nothing more to really say. Yeah, we did draw a little bit more Jujutsu Kaisen with Toji. Let's just take a look at this character. Yeah, this one took me a while to draw. I do remember this fondly. Yeah, about almost 3 hours to draw. And you can tell I did spend the most time on this one in my early character illustrations. Did do a little bit of Hollow Knight fine art as well. This one, actually not bad. Wow, I've kind of impressed myself with this one. Got a little bit of rim light as well on the character. Definitely like this one. So now this might sound a little bit stupid, but when doing these illustrations, I was like, man, I've been doing a lot of gesture drawings. What does that mean? For my video, I have to do something that is going to really wow people, like a fully illustrated character. And it was like, looking back, Harry, it sounds so stupid because all I've been doing is gesture drawings essentially for like the past several months. And I've had like zero experience with like rendering even. So something that really annoyed me about rendering the entire process of it was that I every time I tried to render a piece, it always ended up looking so dirty. Like this is obviously Lapland from Arknight, and again just the rendering, like it always just looked dirty. And I was using a reference, and I was like, why does my illustrations always look dirty compared to the actual result? Like again, not really a bad drawing, right? Like illustration wise, not that bad. But then you just look at the rendering, and I do like some of the texture in the hair, but overall, it's like, what are we doing? Where even is the light source, you know? But it's to be expected because all I've been doing is gesture drawings. I've not really been doing anything for rendering, right? I did, in the end, duplicate this one, and I tried rendering again. It was just essentially like the same outcome. And what I believe the problem was is that I was trying to render without really knowing where to put everything. So in the end, what I decided to do was just do my own illustration, which I believe looks the cleanest. And instead of just looking at a reference that had a whole bunch of rendering everywhere, I decided to just say, hey, look, this is my illustration. Let's make a new layer. I am going to say the light source is right here. Oops. Let's get a little bit of a better brush. Okay. I'm going to say the light source is coming down right here. And I am just going to use the shadows where I know it's going to be. It's going to be at the back of the head. It's going to be at the lower body. It's going to be on this hair at the back. And it's probably going to be on this shoulder. Maybe a little bit up here. And I'm going to add a second shadow layer onto places like the neck, a little bit more on a little bit of the skin as well, and a little bit more on maybe the hair here and the hair in the back. That's all I did. I was like, okay, when I do the first shadow layer, it looks decent. When I try to add more, looking at the reference, it ends up looking so dirty. So instead of doing more, I'm going to do less and it's going to look better. And that's how I ended up with this, which I would say is probably my best rendered piece at the moment. And yeah, I've done a couple more characters like this one, doing a little bit of a side to a back view. Again, it just looked a bit dirty. Then I did this one of Makima and essentially just said, okay, look, I'm just going to map out where I think the shadows are going to be, and I'm going to map out where I think the highlights are. I'm not doing any more than that, and it looked better than some of my other pieces. Again, I wouldn't say it looks good, but it looks better. Oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, bro, let me just say this. This was my first ever, I think, illustration on my iPad ever. So, with that being said, it's not that bad, but it is pretty bad. Like, the clothing even isn't on, like, oops, let me use a thinner brush. It's not even, like, on the body. It's out so much. It's fine for the lower area because obviously gravity exists, but the upper area, why is it so far apart when, it should be really on the skin? Okay, now what is this? I was just looking back to some of my earliest illustrations. What is this? Okay, now I'm gonna say this. I've got massive improvements over the last several months, okay? I cannot believe this was one of my illustrations earlier. Wow, okay, I'm so glad I made this video because this made me feel so much more better about my progression. So yeah, I hope you guys liked it. Sorry that the lighting was really bad actually, looking back at the video. But yeah, that was essentially it for my progression so far. And I will have another video out soon. Don't know when, but thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.